Hello, greetings, salutations, welcome back to my RP-1 campaign on hard. So surprisingly enough, we had successful launches yesterday, and a successful flight. So we're going to do our last moonshot. We're going to do another ComSat. Maybe? Oh, no, that was just the... Right, that was just a temporary. That was just the temporary version of this that we'd added in case we had a failure. Okay. So we will have ourselves a Mercury in something on the order of 8 months. That's pretty great. Which means we will almost, yeah, should be pretty close. So unless we can find some more money to invest somewhere, we will not be on track for Vostok 1's timeline, but we will be on track to be between it and Friendship 7. This is probably doable. It would be doable, except we don't have good enough solar panels to power near-Earth avionics. And we can't do it with science cores because I made science cores not allow not be able to fire RCS for them. This needs enough battery to stay alive for 12 hours. Pretty sure we'll be able to do this. Man, all of these things need controllable probe cores. So this doesn't need a controllable probe core, but it's kind of not worth the payout. Like to do a lunar landing, but we need way better solar power before we can do that. Gotta figure out what to build next. Well, we could just keep grinding these. Like, they pay pretty well. They really pay pretty well. So I guess that's what we'll do. And it doesn't lock us into a long build either, which is nice. 68 days until that's built, then another 30 or 40 days to build the thing, and then we can figure out what to do about it at that point. Training completes. When does training complete? April 1st. I guess I could send up a film camera again. It wouldn't pay anything, but it would give us science. But we have a bunch of science, so I'm not so worried about that. So yeah, let's just launch another ComSat. Yeah, 40 days, like I thought. Okay, it will be our last lunar impactor. Trying to decide if I should spend more money. I think I probably should. Because we're going to keep doing contracts until it actually becomes time to unlock Mercury. Although I have to remember that even if I don't have to tool anything, just building the rocket will cost an awful lot of money. I actually get anything from this? It's probably a tank upgrade. Yeah. Yeah, the SM tank upgrade. Okay. Hey, Stone Smile. Get another point. Roll it out. How's this going? 98 days. Alright, I think it's time to start mission training. December 17th. Night lunar launch. Oh, I'm a doofus. I forgot that I'm constrained in my lunar launches because of not having better solar panels. So we need to wait about 6 days. At 6 days, let us examine the configuration of the moon. Okay. That looks about right for a 5-day transit. A 5-day transit would actually put us here. Actually, no, a 5-day transit would. 5-day transit would put us here. I really want to do a 3-day transit, but I think we won't have enough delta V to capture at that point. So I think I slightly overwarped. Yeah, I did slightly overwarp. It's fine. Okay, I think this will be correct. Or at least correct enough. That looks better. Staging looks correct. Oh. So we're still going to launch a bit late, but it will be fine. Oh, right. Right. I'm not launching into the plane of the target. I'm manually launching. And what inclination do I want? What is my current? Current. Okay. I feel like I should be launching from an Atlas Agena pad rather than the Mercury Atlas pad, but I didn't want to configure it twice. Well, the inner stages are fairly easy to pick out. The rest of the rocket, not so much. Pretty good. Good. Convenient of this LR91 to offer absolutely sterling service. We've only flown it on operational missions. And it has worked flawlessly. This is indeed using the non-pulsing plume. Or at any rate, I pulled down the latest from Realism Overhaul, which had that commit. So I assume this is the non-pulsating plume, and it does look different from before and less pulsy. So I think it's working fine. Like, it's still operating in a repeatable pattern, but it looks less like pulses. But like, the pattern is expected because it's an animated texture. Coming up on insertion. Okay, our relative inclination is lower than I expected, so we won't actually have that much. Won't have that much dispersion. Okay, let's go to the moon. Yeah, that's a little more expensive. Because normal 425. That's impressive. Still almost 5 days. Much slower transit than I expected. Not real sure what's going on. Okay, that'll work. It does annoyingly look like we're still basically in that plane. Let's try a coplanar transfer. Okay, so that takes the same amount of time and is out of plane. So I'm happier with that. It's actually more equatorial, but at least it's not on the same plane. That's making next to no difference. So we'll just burn it and clean it up on RCS. It will be fine. Squirrel, what do you mean by the axis of the bodies? The axis of a body is, when not using Principia, is always precisely up and down in map view. Like, that's how KSP works. Yeah, Principia solves all things. Yeah, the axis is just not correct. No, that's what I'm saying. If you're not playing Kerbal with Principia, then Kerbal makes the fundamental assumption that the north-south axis of all bodies, like the spin axis of all bodies, is exactly up and down with respect to the planetarium's up and down axis. And that is why in RSS everything is tilted, because that's the only way I could give Earth axial tilt, and I accept that the tilt of everything else will be wrong. And yeah, Uranus is the one that spins on its side. It's freaking weird. Also, that engine is super quiet. Okay, let's flip inverted. Why did I never think to do this before? I should just color it red when there are no ignitions left. Whether or not you have good ullage. Or color it something when there are no ignitions left. Okay, 40 kilometers. Add a maneuver of about 730. I didn't actually measure last time. I'm just guessing at what my delta V will be. That's interesting. So yes, this resulted in a maneuver node that is nowhere near our orbital retrograde. I think that's probably correct. Let's find out. Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah, that's quite close indeed. Come left a little bit. That is about as good an alignment as we can reasonably expect. Okay. All right, we've spun up, so let us decouple. Yeah, this time for some reason we must have the DSN. All right. Okay. Gonna face punch the moon. And lastly, go ahead and make this debris. Add an alarm. Wish you could set an alarm for explosion. All right. That's a reasonable amount of solar exposure. That's actually really good alignment. We're losing about 2 watts out of our maximum solar capacity. So I really nailed the alignment this time. Anyway, let us go visit the moon. And lastly, auto. Power low, disable. Power high, enable. Outward bound. Would have liked something polar, but polar is effectively impossible to do without a course correction maneuver halfway out. Okay. Still aligned pretty good. So now let's switch to our impactor. estimated time of impact is on the order of an hour earlier than that, so that's fine. Okay, I'm going to let this go. Kaboom! We had an earth-shattering kaboom, or in this case, a moon-shattering kaboom. Okay, that completed that contract. We totally lost alignment. Why did we lose alignment? I don't understand. That was super weird. Well, let's see what happens. I would rather not have to reload this thing. So now I actually have to do a little bit of math. Alright, so I think I actually want to fire the engine right now. Specimen spiff. Oh, sorry, I keep... God, I haven't called you that in forever. Squirrel. When we left this craft, it was aligned with the maneuver node. When we returned to this craft, it was no longer aligned from the maneuver node. That means there was an issue reloading its saved rotation via mandatory RCS. The point of my aligning with the maneuver node and spinning up is so that I would be aligned with the maneuver node and spun up when we reach the maneuver. Like that's the simplest. That is the simplest possible operation of spin stabilization. When we left this craft, it was aligned along a certain orientation in the space of the planetarium, and when we return to it, that's no longer true, because maneuver node certainly did not change its celestial orientation during that time, because maneuver node orientations are absolute. I mean, yes, obviously Principia solves that problem too. Principia solves all problems, including having too many CPU cycles. Principia solves that one too. But yes, there's some issue with the fact that I was changing vessels. It may have had to do with the fact that one of them exploded. I don't really know. I thought it was to do with Kerbal Alarm Clock messing with warp rates last time, but that seems to not be the case. Well, anyway, the math tells me that if I burn now, my pitch is about 16 degrees off retrograde, 16.7 degrees. The vertical component is about 198 meters per second. That's close enough to this that I think I want to burn now. If we wait for alignment with retrograde, which will happen eventually, we will capture after periapsis, which means our periapsis will be lower. So let's see what happens. Yep, that was exactly as expected. It left our periapsis about our current altitude, which was exactly what I planned on. So yes, mathematically we solved that problem. Given that I don't need to be under 500 kilometers for my apoapsis, this is fine. I accept this solution. The downside, of course, also is that our solar panels are now not as well aligned as they were. We lost a whole watt. Uh, 4 watts actually, because it's 4 panels. So that's also annoying. But it's not annoying me enough for me to try to reload and make it actually work. Given that my orbit did not drift, and given that my maneuver node was at the periapsis, I'm fairly sure that the maneuver node didn't drift. And as I was just saying, I experimentally verified that by the fact that I lost the whole 12% of my solar power wattage. And I don't think that could either be explained by a 4-day transit, or i.e. the solar panels losing efficiency over 4 days, or by the sun moving by 4 days worth of movement. So I think that seems more explainable by the heading actually shifting. Anyway, it's fine. Like we're gonna get science out of that thing. We're just gonna get it slightly slower than we otherwise would. It's gonna be in a slightly different orbit than it otherwise would be. So yeah, that's where we ended up. Sure, I'll take that. So it's another 120-kilometer flight. Glenn should be ready to go. Yes. We're going to start a little bit further out and hopefully be in space over the shore rather than the forest. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Sorry, that looked like Malaysia for a sec, so I was very confused. Okay, so that was not the heading that I thought I was selecting. Well, it's fine. Yeah, this is a sucky ascent. I did this wrong. I screwed up. I screwed up. I really should like write down my ascent path from one night to another, so I actually remember what the heck I'm doing. And I'll take that opportunity to change where I'm air launching from. Okay, so we're actually pretty close to Wallops. That's cool. Okay. Oh boy. Forgot to turn on RCS. Did I mess up my ascent again? No, we're gonna be okay. Okay. That will do. So we're not going to make it to space, but that's fine. We'll get more atmospheric science. Space plane. Kind of wish I'd taken the time to do the stripe. Okay, 400 kilometers to go. Wait, what the heck is going on here? Why is it not letting me? There we go. That was bad. Like, we weren't alpha limited. Guess we were G limited, maybe. Or something.
Hey there.
Hello. You joined me once again flying a space plane, although for the second to last, the third to last, I'd say the penultimate time, but I think we might get 3 flights in.
Okay.
Because I'm 7 months away. So I'm 7 months away from Mercury being researched, but it will take a little while to build at least.
So these contract flights, or are you just doing hypersonic?
These are contract flights still.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm not hurting for science. Like, I have 100 science because I have a bunch of lunar orbiters with limited science on board, but still. Definitely given me enough science until I go interplanetary.
Yeah, so the only thing I wanted to talk about with the changes to the launch pad stuff was whether it's Ryan's thing will become permanent, because that throws a big wrinkle into it.
I'm not sure it does throw a wrinkle into it. Like,
Well, how do you figure?
Well, I mean, I guess, what is the wrinkle that you're seeing?
Okay, so it's Ryan's thing. Part of the intent is that you could be building the upper stage / satellite portion of the rocket and then merge it onto an LV.
Yep.
But then how do you handle the fact that you'll have a launch line that only builds for a specific tonnage?
Because it doesn't matter what it's building, it matters what you can roll out.
Okay, so you think you'll just be able to build anything on that launch time and then roll out to there specifically?
Yeah, I think that'll just solve it pretty neatly. The thing I'm more concerned about is that you would have to build both of them on the same line that you're going to launch them on, because you can't share things between lines. Which also means, incidentally, that when you recover something, you have to determine what it gets recovered into.
Yep. Okay. I mean, yeah, that doesn't solves it, but it is weird that you would have to build it on the same line.
I mean, I don't think it's that weird, because you're not actually building it, right? You're integrating it.
Sure.
So, like, if you're taking the payload into a high bay, you're taking it into the high bay for actually integrating it with that launcher. Like, you're not just taking it into any bay. Like, you could probably do some, like, technically you could probably do some of the work wherever, but like a big chunk of the work will just be preparing it for, I don't know, we're sort of, I think in some ways we're trapped by not having a manufacturing system, which means that in our heads we start thinking about, like, we even talk about it as building rather than integrating.
Yep. Fair. Okay. Yep. You're right. It's just a different way.
Yeah.
You're right. That's exactly what I've been thinking, and that's why it bothers me.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little sketchy because you probably, like, technically you probably could have just like a big clean room and a payload integration facility that just puts the probe together, and then from its, like JPL builds something and then ships it off to the Cape, and then it's, checks a run at the Cape before it actually starts getting integrated to the launch vehicle. So we're eluding that process, but otherwise it's fine.
We're leading the part of it where NASA checks it.
No, the like, we're saying it has to be done on the same line of the launch vehicle you're launching it on, rather than like it could be done in some separate thing. Like, it is pretty clunky that you have to build the You have to integrate. You can do pre-integration work to put a payload together, but that work has to be done. I guess it's not the worst thing in the world if that basically has to be done at the launch complex it's going to be launched from.
Yeah, I thought that was your point, essentially.
Yeah.
That the integration has to be done at that launch complex and that integration facility that was built for that launcher.
Yeah, I mean, that basically is my point. I was saying, like, it is probably the case that, like, some of that work could be done in a launch vehicle agnostic facility, and some of that work has to actually be done at the launch complex. And if we're skipping the first part of that work, but it's not the worst thing in the world if we skip it, I think. Like, it's better to have the feature, and it's better to have the edit feature and to have the pad feature than to try to do a bunch of work to make that work in a way that they like sacrifice some bit of all that. But yeah, I think a lot of it just comes from we're super used to thinking of and talking about it as building when it's not actually building.
Yeah, we also talk about how the components actually cost this much rather than the integration costing that much, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the integration costs, like, that is the weird thing, is that the cost you are paying is the cost of the component plus the integration cost, which is shown in the KCT window. Like, the actual cost shown is notionally the purchase price of the thing. And I would like to get us to a place where we have manufacturing, but that takes even more work than this halfway step. So, I mean, it doesn't take that much more work, but it takes the work of somebody willing to do the work, which means it is essentially of infinite capacity until someone steps up to do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to.
Garbled. I think you're having your old headphones problem.
Uh-oh. Let me see whether I'm dropping frames. I'm not dropping frames, and I don't know if anybody in chat is hearing me as garbled.
I don't even see anybody talking in chat. Maybe my Twitch is screwed up.
Thyson says it's fine, so I think maybe your Discord misbehaving again.
Okay, I'll try restarting the call. This is a pretty unique approach, by the way.
Yeah, it's called being really impatient. Really, really, really impatient.
I could start just doing the extra lazy way, which is just putting parachutes on.
I mean, that is a thing that could be done. I feel like I would sort of hate myself for doing it, but that is a thing that could be done. I did take the drogue chute off this, though, because I've literally never used it.
I feel like half my conversations with you during streams are trying to convince you to go to the dark side.
In one way or another, yes.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm actually gonna come around, because I think that's a little sketchy. But happily we do not lack for energy. And also, it doesn't take much to actually stop this thing, so.
Yeah.
Okay, settling down. There we are. Okay. All done. Yeah, so that dialogue is going to be a royal pain when you click recover, and then, I mean, I guess we could do it on this screen, which is probably better, which is like once it's actually recovered, then you choose what to recover it into, rather than having you try to pick it on the flight scene. Hopefully I'm less garbled now, or?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was trying to say before, it's like basically it's like a lot of these things, it's super dependent on somebody actually stepping up to do the code, which I'm assuming for the pad thing is probably going to be me at some point, but I'm trying to balance the actual modding work I do with the playing work I do so I don't burn out as much as I have in past occasions. Like I went super hard on writing tooling and training last time and then kind of stopped playing.
Yeah, that's understandable. Well, you should definitely just keep having fun. We don't need more grumpy modders.
Yeah, there's something in the modder water. Okay, so what do we got next? We have ready to go. Getting real close. Sadly, we just can't quite make April 61 for our first launch. We'll miss it by probably 3-4 months. But 3-4 months behind Vostok 1 is not bad at all on hard.
Yeah.
So Stone Smile, the issue is not could we store more data, it's more that you may launch it from one pad line and want to recover it to a different pad. Super simple example. Assuming you have like a reusable version of Apollo, you might launch one on a Saturn 1B and then want to recover it and then fly it via Saturn 5, and that would require flying it to a different line, recovering it into a different line. Okay, so yeah, we are definitely looking at 1, maybe 2 more flights of that. Certainly 2, because we can take a minimal reward.
Yep. You have a good guess about exactly when you'll do that Mercury mission. You can split the difference to make the most out of it.
Yeah, that's a good bet. Let's right. Given the work done on experimental parts, we might as well have a look at this and see how it goes. How expensive it's going to be to time to build. The first step is to load I guess one of the Pioneers. The seam on these. The seam is there. Yep. There we go. Now, that gets tossed, and instead, that's interesting. Why does that cost 1,000 funds more? Weird.
Oh, I remember the Mercuries used to cost like 3K. So I guess somebody discounted one of them.
Yeah, I mean, here it is, used to be costing 3K. My guess is because there's a bunch of other parts and the costs are shared. But I don't know.
Oh, I almost always do Vostok.
To save the money.
What's that?
I was saying to save the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with the tags applied, the capsule becomes the biggest source of integration time.
Yep. But also with ECMs, you get to pay this cost going forward in a way that you don't with Vostok.
Yeah.
Okay. That's weird. What's up with that? Why does that not... Oh, it's presumably because this is a BDB part and it's designed for Kerbalized diameters. So the aspect ratio is off. Oh well.
Yeah, that's weird.
Retro pack. Oh, the heat shield. Definitely want a heat shield first. And settings, fix this. Stone Smile, interesting. I did not know that the real version had it stick out a bit there. Learn something every day. All right.
Yeah, it certainly does.
That actually, I mean, that makes sense now that I think about it, because it's gonna be keeping the, like, deflecting the blast of the abort motors, keeping them away from the RCS jet stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we could place this whole thing in orbit, including the abort tower, which seems a little bit extreme.
You cut out, what did you say? Or at least for me.
We could place the whole thing into orbit, including the abort tower, which seems a little bit much. Want those to activate when the Puzzy grades activate. Okay. So interestingly enough, we don't actually need the posigrades because we have retros. So I will not include them. Abort tower, and we'll fire the abort tower here. That seems fine. Now, somewhere around 1.9 if memory serves. I mean, it's obviously in inches. It's pretty close. So we need to go to five, 3. Oops. Five, 3, 5, which takes this down to 6, 5. Okay. So we can take this polar, which is convenient. We also can overload things a little bit. I'm going to change how this is set up, such that when I decouple it, it will take the avionics with it. So now, electric charge, 1 day, 4 hours. Wait, why is there no food on board? There's food on board. What's happening? Oh, I wasn't looking at the... I was looking at consumed. Oh, it's because there's... because Glenn's on leave and everybody else is busy training. As an O2 pressure controller, scrubber, okay, it's fine. All right. So yeah, I don't think I actually want to... don't think I want to try to stretch this beyond a day. That's just too mean. Cure was only barely designed for a day.
Get David Blaine to fly up there.
I mean, Al Shepard wanted to do a week. Good luck. Huh, why are these at 0? That's weird. That was deeply confusing. Thank you, Stone Spile. All right, so let's do what I... Oh, yeah, right. That's why I was doing those hijinks with this interstage, so that we wouldn't actually have to tool it. So that's better than I feared. 103 days to build it, and then so 112 days all told, including the rollout. So that's really pretty nice.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go ahead and save this. And what do I want to call it? I want to call it. I have to think of a capsule name. Names are consistently the hardest part of these programs.
Did you not come up with a theme for this playthrough?
So my launch vehicles are named after fish, and that's the extent to which I have a theme.
Okay.
This is a bluefish. The Thor-like is an albacore.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, you could name them after sea mammals. You want to stay close to theme.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, otter.
Yeah, otter's cool. Otter's... Okay. Okay.
Makes
Yoink.
sense, because the sea mammals have to take oxygen with them when they go diving, whereas the fish do not.
Nice.
I
Nice.
know, it's a big stretch.
It is a little bit of a stretch, but that's okay. All right. So oh, and I didn't check how expensive it was. $7 million and an additional almost 7 million, and then another 2.4 million. So oh, actually, are we on the right pad? Maybe we're not. Yes, we are on the right pad. Cool. Oh, of course we are, because this would be angry red if not. I mean, we could also do something silly like not include one of the engines, and then it would be cheaper. Like under fuel, basically do a genuinely a Titan rather than a Titan and a half.
Yeah.
But like I don't think that will make it. That'll probably only save something like 10 days. It will save a fair amount of money. It'll save probably. How much do they cost? They cost like 300 each. LR79 is around here somewhere. The one. 300, yeah, that's what I thought. And then effectively multiplied by 2. Not more because of the tag on it, and then the human rated tag.
That is true, Squirrel Patrol. Your max TWRs are 7 and 10.
I'm aware. I'm aware. Okay, so it already costs 4x. Except that's its cost in build points. It's not actually its monetary cost. It's worth pointing out that the problem is the upper stage burnout rather than the lower stage. So removing an engine from the lower stage won't actually help.
Is that the full burn time for your upper stage?
It's actually I'm overburning it. Yeah, the full burn time is, what is it? Let's see. I'm overburning it by 20 seconds. Well, 22 probably, counting average case residuals. Also, I have to Have to switch the umbilicals around and design the crew elevator side. But otherwise, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, this has almost 700 meters per second to spare. So we could solve the burnout G problem by just putting a bunch of lead ballast in the second stage. Like that would definitely solve the burnout thrust to weight ratio issue. Make me feel kind of silly, but it would solve it. But we're basically solving it by not burning the last 600 meters per second. The other nice thing is that it means we can go to a 185 kilometer perigee instead of 160 kilometer perigee. Yes, I want to see how this thing performs. I
take it there's no coast on this rocket.
No. Also, coast is broken with residuals anyway. Like, I did some work to make it less broken, and I don't know if it's actually reliable enough now that you can use it, but my memory was Lamont said it's not actually. Oh, I can't actually do this because I don't have a Kerbal to put in it, so I can't sim it right now.
Simulate it with some avionics on there.
Yeah, the power usage will be wacky though. There. Decouple. And the abort tower.
Well, it's fine. You only wanted a cost estimate anyway for now.
Yeah. Deploy, shoot, and decouple. All right. So yeah, that should work, and let's test the abort capability.
Yeah, have to go to bed now, by the way. Good night.
Night. I'm not long either, but thanks for coming by, and good dev chat as well. Tomorrow, or whenever your next round. Later. See how the abort works. Basically successful. Except for the fact that I forgot to decouple the retro pack. Okay. Working fine. I wish that thing crumpled on impact. That'd be cool. Okay. Seems good. It's good. Do need to that change. And Atlas. It'll be under Mercury. Mercury Atlas crew elevator. Oh, right, of course. This is taller than the actual one. That's problematic. Yeah, so I guess we have to make a manual one? That's weird. It's higher than the floor of the elevator. Okay. Okay. That looks fairly ridiculous, but that's what we're going to go with. Any milk stool size, pretty short. And then Mercury Atlas crew elevator. Walkway. Umbilical. Oh yes, I remember this from last time. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm going for aesthetics because I absolutely adore modular launch platforms. Makes things feel so much more realistic. They're also dirt cheap. They cost like 1 fund each, and they don't imply any. I wrote code in KCT, so they don't actually add to build time. So there's no downside to using them other than like maybe the time invested in getting this to work right. But all right, I'm happy now. I still don't like this part of it, but I don't have a good solution. Okay. So that's all ready and waiting for us for tomorrow. So let's make sure there's nothing else super busted, and then I will go to bed. Okay, raise the walkway. Let's go polar. Oh, the staging screwed up. Yep. Oh. Yeah, the staging is screwed up. Not the way I initially thought the staging was screwed up. Staging is screwed up that way. Alright. Alright, so we're going polar. Let's go. Pretty high dynamic pressure. Here we go. Yeah, we still have tons of excess capability. No Kerbal on board. Like I was saying before, 3 Kerbals are in proficiency training for this capsule, and 1 Kerbal is on leave after having just flown the suborbital spaceflight. With the Starstreak. Here we come. Okay, burnout was at 8 Gs, which is about what Titan II was, and about what Atlas was, so I don't feel so bad. Why is the RCS not RCSing? RCS is enabled. have peroxide and we have helium. That's super weird. Oh, right. That's why. Okay, that's another staging issue. So, roll is on the capsule, but pitch and yaw are on this thing, which was not active, so that's what was going on. Okay. Let's fire the retros. Okay. Realign. Oh, interesting. That thing is not staged. All right. So, a few things to fix. Alright, so the RCS on that has to start enabled. That's annoying. Next, fix that, and then enable staging on this. I use mandatory RCS from Got Machine. It, unlike precision rotation, it saves the info in, it uses a vessel module and saves the info in a save game normally, and seems to have fewer bugs. Although it does have it did have that weird bug about that we just saw earlier with the axis of rotation shifting slightly. But yeah, it's basically I'm planning to switch over to Principia, so this is sort of immaterial. Okay, so yeah, I think that's all set up. It was rotating during time warp. I think what you were seeing was that so there's two things that can happen. One is if the rotation is at a, the revolutions are such that when you warp, it actually looks like it's standing still just due to the fact that from frame to frame the rotation is very minor. But I think what you were seeing in this case is that MechJeb is set to turn on SAS when warping. So MechJeb turns on SAS as soon as I hit time warp. Now, like persistent rotation, mandatory RCS disable, like, assuming you have a low enough rotational velocity and you have SAS on, then you will not rotate during warp in either persistent rotation or mandatory RCS. So that's what you were seeing, was MechJeb was on, it had us stabilized, I warped, which meant it turned on SAS, which meant that mandatory RCS is like, oh, your angular velocity is below a threshold value, and you have SAS on, which means we don't rotate you during time warp. So that's what that was about. All right, so that's ready to go, and is waiting only for us to actually unlock those parts. So on that happy note, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Night.